Let's talk briefly about connectivity problems. Here we have a little map of computers and wireless access points. We have desktop systems, laptops, mobile devices, and two wireless access points that also act as switches. The whole thing about connectivity is you need to be within range and you need to be running the same protocol, and you don't want to have interference. So you want to think about that whenever you're dealing with wireless networks. Here is the icon for mobile devices that shows Wi-Fi connectivity, in fact, with full bars. This is what we want. And this is an icon on, say, a Windows 8 laptop that shows that there is not wireless connectivity. You have that X on there. This is what we don't want. So no connectivity, such as this, when you get an icon like this, it could be caused by several things. And one of the primary things is the wireless access point is not accessible. It's either not broadcasting or it's not turned on. And you also want to check if the wireless is turned on the device. Now, this could be done in a variety of ways. If you have a mobile device like a smartphone or a tablet, then you can tap the wireless button to turn it on, and then you want to make sure you scan for the correct networks and connect. On a laptop, you'll often have a function button that can turn wireless on and off. And then on the laptop and on the desktop, you can click on the wireless link to bring up that wireless bar and actually scan through everything, or go to your network and sharing center and try to make your connection. You can also enable and disable wireless from there, and you can also enable and disable the wireless adapter from the device manager. So these are all things that you want to check. And you might have third-party software that controls your wireless connection, where you can turn the wireless on and off. So for no connectivity, you want to make sure the wireless access point is on and broadcasting and within range, and make sure that your mobile device or computer is on and broadcasting and everything's enabled and also within range. It gets a little bit more difficult to troubleshoot when you get into limited connectivity. Limited connectivity could mean a couple things. One, it could mean that you have only X amount of data transfer per second. You know, say instead of connecting at 300 megabits per second, you can only connect at 50 megabits per second. And that could be caused by a couple things. That could be caused by the wireless access point throttling down the connection and capping you at a certain speed. It could also be caused by the distance of the wireless access point from the device. It could also be a problem with the protocol used. You may want to connect your laptop via 802.11ac, but this wireless access point is only broadcasting on 802.11g, and you make that connection, and then you're only limited to 54 megabits per second. So there's a lot of possibilities with limited connectivity as well. So the best thing to do is to check the protocol, make sure that you have the correct protocol running on the wireless access point and on the mobile device or the desktop or laptop. And then you can also check your antennas. Make sure the antennas are screwed on, and you can adjust their angle to try to promote the best connection, and then check the distance as well. Now, another thing about limited connectivity is you can have a time-based limited connectivity. Let's say there's a policy in the company and this wireless access point only broadcasts between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Well, you're going to be limited to those hours from your computer. So that's something you got to keep in mind also. It's a possibility that you can only connect at certain times. That's another possible limited connectivity. The next one is intermittent connectivity. Now, when it comes to PCs, usually intermittent problems are the hardest to troubleshoot. But with wireless networks, intermittent problems are a little bit easier. If you have intermittent connectivity, it could mean one of a couple things. One, your computer's distance from the wireless access point is too great. And two, there's possible interference from other devices or other electronic devices or microwaves or HVAC equipment. So it's really broken down into distance and interference. So if this computer is, say, way out over here, it's going to be a little bit too far to get that connection to wireless access point. You know, if you have, say, 802.11n, and you have a computer that's 250 feet out in a warehouse, you know, it's going to be difficult to get that connection. So you might get no connectivity, or you might get intermittent connectivity where you have a connection, but then it drops out. And, you know, you get that complaint from people a lot. My connection keeps dropping out. And in that case, it's the distance. But you might have a bunch of walls in between you and your computer and the wireless access point. And again, you might have that interference with other devices and electronic equipment and electrical devices. And that's when the interference comes into play. Now, with both of these, with distance and interference, if you see intermittent connectivity, when you do have a connection, it'll usually be pretty slow. So let's say you have an 802.11 AC connection. If that's the case, and you normally are getting somewhere in the range of 500 megabit per second connections, when you have this intermittent connectivity and you can connect, you might see connections around 50 or 100 megabits per second or even lower. So if you see that much lower data transfer rate than you're accustomed to, or what the protocol should provide when you do have connectivity, then that intermittent connectivity is most likely caused by distance or by interference. Then there's local connectivity. And what we mean by this is connectivity to the local area network, but nothing beyond that. And the local connectivity to the network means you can connect from your desktop to other computers on the LAN and the wireless access point or points, but you can't get out to internet sites, to websites. You can't download your mail from the internet, that kind of thing. If this happens, it's generally an issue on one of two sides. One, the computer's IP configuration could be wrong. Its gateway address could be incorrect. So you do your ipconfig/all and check that. Or two, it could be a wireless access point issue where the wireless access point is not connecting out to the gateway properly. Now, if that's the case, all computers would not be able to get on. If it's only one system, then that can't get onto the internet, then you want to focus on that one system's IP configuration and that gateway address. Sometimes fixing the gateway address, changing the gateway address will fix the problem. Sometimes you need to do an IP config release and renew. And sometimes you need to forget the networking connection altogether, forget that wireless connection, and then reconnect to it. And these types of things can help to fix a lot of these problems. Forget the wireless network and reconnect, power cycle the equipment, check if the wireless adapter is enabled in Windows in the device manager or in the network and sharing center or in the third-party software, or press the button, the function key on the laptop, check the wireless software within the mobile device. And another thing with all of these as well is the antennas. Of course, you got to make sure that the antennas are connected, they're screwed on, and they're adjusted properly. Normally, I'll adjust these at a 90-degree angle. I'll have one pointing out straight and then one at a 45 to that and one at a 45-degree angle to that guy. And the same thing on the clients. Now, you can't do much about that with the mobile devices, but with the PC, you definitely can, because that has the external antennas, so you can adjust those for best connectivity. So there's some things to look at with connectivity problems, and that's about it for this sub-lesson.